On today's show, man oh man, has the stove been cooking? It's been on fire. Talking a little bit about some of the recent moves over the last few days. And then I'm being joined by Padres minor leader Ryan Bergert for an interview about his career, about his favorite food, about his fastball, all those mechanics, getting into it. So fun episode today. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Thursday, December 12th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You might be familiar with my other baseball-related work over at justbaseball.com, where I write about Padres, where I write about general baseball, and also I work on the newsletter. Be sure to subscribe to the Just Baseball newsletter for all the immediate updates and information on all things happening throughout the league, guys. You can follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, Twitter/X, and also Blue Sky as well. Today's episode, guys, we are doing a bunch of things. First, I have an interview with Ryan Bergert that we're going to cut to in a little bit. But first, I just wanted to talk a little bit, very briefly, about some of the biggest news and like kind of things that have dropped over the past few days in baseball land, because it's been a lot. And I had talked about before that I pre-recorded a bunch of podcasts from over the weekend, so I didn't necessarily, react to the news in time. But in fairness to me, they weren't necessarily immediately Padres related, right? But they did have some impact. I will say there were some things that we got to talk about, guys. Today's episode, though, let me just tell you, is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's start off first with Mr. Garrett Crochet being traded to the Boston Red Sox. First reaction is just an in general principle. The Red Sox did not have to give up. Their farm system is very offensively oriented. With guys like Marcelo Meyer, that's what they have. They have a lot of offensive bats, and they didn't even have to give up their best ones in this trade. I'm not saying that they didn't get anything or give up anything to the White Sox in return for this trade, but it just goes to show you, just remember, all of the projections for what it's going to cost to acquire players is usually not correct, in my opinion. I think that teams value guys differently, and they don't just go look up MLB top prospects, Padres, and they're like, okay, we want your 1 and 3 guy. I think things are valued differently. But it also goes to show that, if it was reported that the White Sox and Padres had a conversation, and the Padres are like, no, nothing on DeVries, nothing on Salas, which I think is great. I think that trading either of those guys really would have been a little bit shaky. I would have preferred trading Salas between any of them, because I think that he's still a little bit ways off, which is fine. I think that he has the upside of like being an elite top of the league catcher, so I think that's fine. But if we have to trade one of them, I would be him. Good move for the Red Sox. I think Garrett Crochet is going to be awesome. He had like a 31% strikeout rate last year and only walked like 2% of batters. He's awesome. His movement is amazing. Would have been nice for the Padres, especially with the years of control. But we're still hoping. The Padres have not been very active so far in the winter meetings and just the trade market in general. And I'm curious, with all this stuff, and we talked about this a little bit in the Dylan Cease player review. But I'm going to talk about it more on Friday's podcast, about what the Padres, like just what they need to be doing this offseason. But I do think with how much we saw Garrett Crochet go for, how much interest, I should say, that he was going for, with the amount of money that Nate Eovaldi just re-signed for, 3 years, $75 million, I think, with the amount of money that Max Fried, we're going to talk about in a second, just signed for. The idea of trading Dylan Cease, who might have like a 13, 14 million salary as estimated by SpotTrack for next season, the idea of trading him, teams are clearly bloodlusting, right? They're clearly very, very hungry for starting pitching right now. So if you were able to get some decent starting pitching help, maybe they feel more confident in some of their own in-house options. Maybe Matt Waldron makes an appearance next year. Maybe they think that Johnny Brito has a step up or whatnot. If you're able to do that, maybe you sign a Max Scherzer, bring him home. Not bring him home, but, I guess redemption for him not actually coming here from that Ken Rosenthal initial report. If you do that, if you get Roki Sasaki, which is becoming a little bit more possible by the day, it feels like. That's another thing we're going to save a lot for Friday, by the way. I do think that you can't dismiss the idea of trading Dylan Cease. I think you could get some stuff in return. You get some salary break. And remember, you still have Michael King. So if you're worried about the future in terms of extending starting pitching and whatnot, you could extend him. You could look to that, right? And I think that that is definitely something that they should try doing, because I don't think that they can keep both. So we'll see. We'll see what the Padres are going to do exactly. I've even seen some rumors that teams might be interested in a rise, and Xander Bogaerts even, because of the fact that their deals aren't crazy necessarily. Now, my thing is that I think Bogaerts is not a good player right now, so I think teams are going to be reticent to do that. But I would say the idea of trading Cease, I'm going to think about it, I'm going to take the day to think about it. It cannot be dismissed. If you could just get a little bit of a nice bulk package. I'm not saying that Preller's going to be able to luck out the way that he did last year with Juan Soto, being able to trade his 1 year left and then getting all these assets that really turned out to be great. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but it's something they should consider, especially if they feel confident about signing Roki Sasaki. Max Fried, by the way, mentioned him before, just real quick. Huge deal with the Yankees. 6 years for this man, and a whole crabola of money, let me tell you. Let me just make sure I get this right. 6 years or 8 years, $218 million, guys. And for context, that wasn't exactly expected, right? That was not something that people were expecting for this guy going forward. If you want to go by the Athletics projection, they were kind of saying, like 180, 150, something like that. He went for $200 million. It's possible that this is a combination of both the starting pitching market being so crazy right now, the amount that they're going for. This guy's going to make $27 million over the next few years until 2032, and it's the highest contract ever for a lefty. That's true, but I also think part of this is that the Yankees are just really antsy because they missed out on Juan Soto. So I think they're going to make a lot of splash trades. They're reportedly interested in Kyle Tucker of the Astros. That's fascinating. Padres? Maybe could he play left field? I don't know, but I also don't think that the Padres have enough. The Padres farm system, as of right now, it could change in the future, especially with, Cash Mayfield and all these other prospects. It's a little bit top heavy right now, and I don't think they want to give up their top guys. I think they could give up Salas if it made sense. But overall, I think they're just too high on these guys, and ownership reportedly is like, no, we're not letting you trade those two. Those two are really important. So totally fine with that. Big deal for the Yankees, though. Shout out Max Fried. Got absolutely paid a lot more than I think people expected. Andres Jimenez traded from the Cleveland Guardians to the Toronto Blue Jays. I bring this up for a couple of reasons, and that's just because, one of the things with Ha-Seong Kim last year was like, should they trade him? I was one of those people who was like, yeah, I think you kind of should, right? Like, I really thought that you should probably trade this guy only because, you could move Jay Cronenworth back to second. I thought you could get some good assets like Lamont Wade from the Giants, just be a decent first baseman, He's still going to probably be their starting first baseman next year, and I think he's okay, not cost nearly as much with all the club control and whatnot. Jimenez, currently, he's on a 7-year, $106 million contract. He's getting paid this next year $10 million, year after that $15 million. Then he gets the $23 million for the rest of the deal. I'm wondering what this means for Ha-Seong Kim. How much is he going to sign for in free agency? Because I don't think Andres Jimenez is better than Ha-Seong Kim. So I found this a very interesting move. Maybe they think that one season that he had, Jimenez, where he was able to be not just an above average offensive player, but a really good offensive player, like genuinely very good. He had a 141 WRC plus in 2022. He was good for 6 wins above replacement. Ever since then, 3.8 and 2.8. He's good. But he's a defensive first player. You look at Ha-Seong Kim, he's been a 3.6, 4.2, 2.6 win player. And by the way, last year, and every year before that, except for that rookie year, he's always been an above-average offensive player. So I'm curious to see what this means for Ha-Seong Kim's market, and I'm surprised that the Blue Jays didn't say, let's actually just sign him instead of giving up assets for Jimenez. But maybe they think that upside from that 2022 season is something they could see there. So curious to see how that plays out. And then lastly, that I want to talk about, Roki Sasaki. We're going to spend more time on it. We got to get to the Ryan Bergert interview, but I will say, Roki Sasaki, there were some comments from his agent talking about, for like mental health reasons, that he might be more interested, more conducive to a medium to low market team. Now, there's a couple things. First of all, I don't know why that's coming out. That feels weird. That feels unfair, frankly, to Roki. I don't think that it's fair for that to be out there, because now people are going to talk about it and know about it and potentially blame things on it. But I'm wondering if that potentially could mean that the Padres could be more in play here. Maybe the superstar, bright lights, having so many other players of big note on the Dodgers, maybe that's a little bit too much. I don't know. But I do think that I think that the Padres aren't the front runner. I do think they have more of a chance than I think is being reported, considering AJ Preller's name drop from a year ago, considering that they need him infinitely more than any other team right now, considering these recent comments about low market to medium market team, considering the Yu Darvish relationship and all that stuff, considering the Joel Wolf relationship with the Padres and the way they treated Darvish and gave him plenty of time. Wolf, was very publicly like, yeah, we really appreciated that. And then considering that the Padres haven't really made a big push in the offseason thus far, right? Like, I thought Yusei Kikuchi was one of those guys that they could potentially be going after, and they have not. I don't think that a Corbin Burns is in their price range or anything like that. Maybe a Jack Flaherty, maybe, but I don't think that that's happening either. I think that teams are going to pay out, especially if that's what Freed just went for. Sean Manaea, those type of players. The fact that they haven't been all that active, maybe Walker Buehler, on the market so far, we haven't gotten a lot of alerts. Maybe that means and bodes well for their chances of being able to sign Roki Sasaki. All I'm saying is there's a lot of signs and whatnot. So be excited for that. And in general, be excited for the offseason, guys. It's not over. Think about it. The only time I've ever seen this man, AJ Preller, actually not do too much during the offseason was the Nick Martinez offseason. If anybody remembers, when Nick Castellanos was a free agent, I believe that I forgot who else. Was it Trey Turner was a free agent? I forgot what it was, but that offseason was like one of the only times, trade deadline and offseason, that Preller's been quiet over the past few years. So I expect some big moves to be made. And I do think it's interesting how much teams are giving up, how much teams are spending on starting pitching. So yeah, Dylan Cease trade. Keep an eye out for it, guys. And keep an eye out for future developments as well. Before we talk to my guy, Ryan, I just need to take a second to talk to you about our sponsor for today, and that is our good friends over at FanDuel. Let me tell you, folks, you got to get in on the action with America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. It's the perfect app that gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, go check out the app, view live play-by-play, and so much more. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. And again, get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. One more word from our sponsors, and then we'll go say hi to Ryan, baby. Let's go. As you all know, I like to only have the most illustrious of guests on this show, and today is no different. I'm being joined by a pitcher for the San Antonio Missions, the AA affiliate of your San Diego Padres, and West Virginia Mountaineers legend. It is Mr. Ryan Bergert. Sir, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Doing good, man. Look, we're in the thick of the offseason for Major League whatnot. I know you're on your grind, time to do that in San Antonio. And it's been quite the ride. So I wanted to talk to you about that and whatnot. But one of the first things that I like asking all players, because I just love hearing their answer, I think, because I genuinely feel like athletes don't get asked this enough in a lot of ways. And that is just, what is something about, in your case, the minor league lifestyle? Like, what do you think is like a big misconception about what it's like being a minor league baseball player?
I think sometimes it can get passed as like this huge glamorous thing. I mean, yes, obviously it's very cool and everything, but it's also more of a grind than I think people give it credit for, I guess. You're at the ballpark 6 days a week out of 7. A lot of the times you're traveling on bus trips 8 hours plus, but yeah, I just think it's more of a grind than people give it credit to. But other than that, I mean, enjoy my time in the clubhouse with all the guys. So
yeah,
it's really fun and enjoyable also.
With the clubhouse, and like, what is that camaraderie like? You know what I mean? Is there stuff that like you bounce off each other? Do you guys just talk about, are you in a clubhouse specifically maybe that tends to stay away and just keep like, whenever you're on the bus ride, you're like, we're going to keep that just to fun stuff? Or, what have you learned, I guess, maybe from some of your many teammates over the years?
I've kind of had it both ways, where some guys, at least different groups, some guys like to just talk baseball. And sometimes it can get a little exhausting when it's all you're doing every day of the week. So, and then there's other guys that just, once they're off the field, they just like to chill out, bro down, hang out with the guys. We'll play video games on the bus sometimes. You know, we were playing college football a lot. And new NCAA game that came out. So we just do stuff like that, hang out, chill. I've actually made a bunch of friends in the clubhouse over the years, and it's been great.
Love that, man.
Yeah.
Now, let's start from a little bit about the beginning. Back in West Virginia, I guess. Let's just talk about, like, first of all, I guess just the draft process.
Yeah.
I've always wondered, you were a 6th rounder. How do you go into that? Because I think that with the NFL, with the NBA especially, I just feel like that process is a little bit different. It's just a little bit more in your face. I think that a lot of people are familiar with some of these guys. Well, the Major League Baseball draft is really, really long. Okay. That 6th round is not nearly as long as many others. Don't get me wrong. But, like, what do you do going into that? Do you have an idea of where you're going to be drafted? Is there like or is it just random? Where were you for the draft? I guess take us into, like, that whole kind of experience.
So, mine was actually a little bit unorthodox itself from the whole normal draft process, because in college I had normal freshman year, sophomore year gets cut short of COVID, went and played some summer ball, and then going into my junior year got hurt, had surgery on my arm, missed my whole junior year. So going in the draft, didn't really know what it was going to look like. Obviously my agent had been telling me what he's been hearing from other teams and stuff, but went through the normal process, talking to all the teams. But then come draft day, really didn't know what kind of, if I was going to be, my name was going to be thrown around or not, what kind of, what round I was going to go in. So I was under the interpretation that it was anywhere from 3rd round to maybe 11th, depending on who wanted me, like the slot money and all that stuff, what people were willing to offer. So I just me and my agent came together with a certain number that we'd be comfortable taking in the draft process, and if not, I was going to go back to school for another year. So that's
just how the cookie crumbles, I guess, sometimes, right? Yeah, absolutely, man. First of all, obviously, congratulations. You've been killing it down in AA and whatnot. And one of the things that, I cover the Padres, and obviously, everybody break the veil. I follow Padres stuff, but there's a lot of minor leaguers. There's a lot of players to keep track of in the Padres system, and just from the multiple levels and whatnot, and things change every other day. But I remember, one of the first things that came across my timeline. This was I'm gonna, I have the note. Let me just look it up. Back in August, you had a really great performance, right? This was kind of like I don't want to say a breakout performance, but like another like re-breakout, like just a reminder, I guess, of what have you, when you just absolutely killed it. Retiring on that 18 batters, 9 strikeouts, allowing, or what's the word? A major part to a no-hitter for the Missions. I want to ask about that. Number one, first of all, just basic question, what is it like to be in that sort of zone when do you like start to realize you're like, oh wow, like no one's gotten a hit, like this is kind of crazy?
It was definitely surreal. It didn't feel like it was actually happening as it was going on. I really didn't notice probably till the fourth inning when I was coming in. I was like, have I thrown out the stretch yet? And that's when it kind of hit in the back of my head that I had something cool going on. So that's really all that I thought about. And then I knew I was on pitch count because I'd been kind of getting built back up from a little short break I took in the middle of the year. So I was like, am I done? Am I going to keep going? I was like through 6. I didn't think I'd given I don't think I let anybody on base at the time. So I was like, am I going back out? And the manager shook my hand. He's like, you're done. You're lucky you got the 6th inning. We didn't take you out the 5th. So they just weren't going to let me roll. But it was definitely eye-opening, I think, because prior to that, I hadn't been having the best of years, but that kind of gave me a little momentum to finish the year strong. So
yeah, love that. It's just kind of, I'm always amazed by that, because for baseball, unlike the other sports, it's not as constant. You're not just like, oh, I missed a shot or I made a shot in the NBA and then I get back on defense. You're not in this constant role. So I'm always just fascinated by the mental aspect of it. What do you do, if anything, to keep yourself, when you're on a roll, or frankly, when you're not on a roll too, to keep yourself kind of balanced and remember an attack? Because it's just, I played baseball, of course, not to compare myself, obviously, but like in Little League,
I remember like there was this frustration with being like, so if I strike out here, I might not have another chance to redeem myself for like an hour. I mean, it was more like 30 minutes, but
Yeah.
it still felt like so how do you maintain, I guess, that kind of vision and that focus?
I think it's just you fall back on your routine and everything that has got you to the place you are now. And for myself, that's my day-to-day routine, what it looks like, taking care of my body, throwing program, middle of the week bullpens in between starts, throwing stuff off of my pitching coach, um, going back and forth, what we think we should do better, what we could work on, what we did good, what we can do throughout the week to make sure that still is a strong suit of mine, and just kind of falling back on that and just trusting the process that you kind of used to get here, other way of words. So
Yeah, totally understand that to a
hmm
degree. I just think it's always wild to me. It's always
yeah.
impressive. So when you're in the zone, just back to the kind of no hitter thing, this is a little bit of just a fun question, but a little bit controversial amongst baseball fans. And I
hmm
imagine, okay, baseball fans, they can be a little bit much sometimes, but there's always this debate about the combined no. You know what I
hmm
mean? And people
yeah.
think it doesn't count. Some people are like, it absolutely counts. Obviously, I'm not taking away from you, but like, what is your reaction when you kind of see those debates?
Um, I see both sides.
Mhm.
I'm not really strongly opinion on either one. Obviously, I think it's a cool accomplishment either way, but I do lean on the side of if one guy completes it, I think it's more a cooler accomplishment than the combined. So,
I agree. I think it's just one of those things that you remembered more, but then it's
hmm
still pretty sick as a team performance.
right.
So absolutely with that, everybody, we're gonna keep talking about Ryan and all of his career stuff, and talk a little bit about the nitty gritty. Maybe I want to talk about his fastball and all that sort of stuff. We're gonna get into that in just a second, but first, a word from our sponsors. And just like that, everybody, we are back here, Locked On Padres, thriving and vibing as always. I'm talking with Ryan Bergert of the San Antonio Missions, AA affiliate of the San Diego Padres. I want to ask you now. Now, when it comes to, I think, what's widely viewed in the industry, and I asked some people as well, 2023 kind of like your breakout year. And just to give some listeners of the podcast some background, Midwest League, then being promoted to AA San Antonio, 2.73 ERA was it was the top 12th. It was the 12th best among 272 minor leaguers with at least 100 innings that season. And FIP was 8th, and it was one spot behind former Padre Robbie Snelling. So
Mhm.
shouts out to everybody else there who might remember our guy Robbie Snelling, no longer with the Padres, of course. But I want to now ask you about the fastball
Mhm.
specifically, because look, I've had some hitters on the show before and haven't really got the breakdown when it comes to fastballs. Oftentimes for novices like me, first thing people go to is velocity, obviously,
Mhm.
like how fast are you going, but there's so much more to it. And specifically with you, how do you get up in the zone, and how do you change that sort of, I guess, trajectory? Like,
Mhm.
how do you work on that? Because to me, I'm just watching cartoons and I'm just imagining you just have to chuck that thing. But I
Yeah.
imagine that there's so much more to it, especially because, in major leagues, in minor leagues, triple A, double A, single A, guys throw hard. You know what I mean? I mean, I
Mhm.
was watching a documentary, I believe it was called Hardball, or not. I think it was actually just called Fastball. Hardball is the Keanu
Mhm.
Reeves movie. Um,
Fastball.
Fastball. And it was just kind of really eye opening how they talk about players from like this farm country, like this guy that everyone's prophesizing. They're like, he threw 85 miles per hour. Nowadays, that's like what high school kids do and whatnot.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering, can you take us into the process of what you do, how you can work on making your fastball different and more unique, aside from just trying to throw it faster?
Yeah. So obviously, velocity is like the number one thing everyone
Mhm.
looks at, but other factors are also like some guys release the ball close to the plate. So perceived velocity, even if it's 90, it's probably going to look to the hitter more like 92, 93. And you can also play with like where you throw the fastball in the zone, like top of the zone. If you have more of a ride type of fastball where it appears like it's going up, where you backspin it very well, um, it can have that illusion where it's harder to hit, looks like it's moving upwards, harder to get on top of. Guys are more prone to pop it up, miss it, miss hit it. So that's kind of the category I fall under. I have a little bit of a ride fastball
Mhm.
where it plays better at the top of the zone. But yeah, perceived velocity is also a big thing that kind of gets overlooked. Top of the zone, fastballs inside tend to look faster than fastballs away or fastballs bottom of the zone. So you kind of just play with that. Release point, like the height and what side of the rubber you're kind of throwing it off of too. Whether it is, if it's lower, it's harder to pick up, and if it's more across your body for a certain type of hitter, righty versus lefty or right on right, it's just looking completely different than a traditional straight fastball coming from the middle of the plate in the middle of the rubber. So
Right. And how do you kind of, because, obviously you have more than just a fastball that you do, but, you're trying to reach the top of the zone. You're trying to, is disguise perhaps the word maybe I could use for it? When it comes to your other repertoire, pitches
yeah,
of your
I
thing,
mean,
like, or go ahead.
tunneling's
Sorry.
a big thing. So you want them all to come out of the same release height, release side, just the same release point overall, make it all look the same. And really it's off of the pitch you threw before is what a lot of pitching coaches I've talked to have said. Like, even if you didn't execute what you wanted to do, you have to pitch off the pitch you just threw, not the pitch you wanted to throw. So you say you go fastball away first pitch and you hit your spot. And you go slider off of that and it kind of just dives off the plate. But then you throw a fastball inside. The fastball away might have been perceived as like a 92 mile an hour fastball, even though it's 94.
Mhm.
If you throw a fastball in at the same velo, it's going to be perceived harder. So it's kind of like a cat and mouse game. You play with the
Yeah.
hitter a little bit. So that's kind of something you work in game versus like when you're working in your bullpens and stuff. So
While you're working on your fastball, you also have other pitches. Is there a different training? Is there a different type of approach you have to take when trying to make a better curveball, better slider, things of that nature?
I mean, yes and no.
Mhm.
Like when you're working in your bullpens, either in the off season or in season when you're in between starts, you're really looking at least now on the professional side rather than when I was younger and an amateur. You're looking at TrackMan data where you're getting live feedback on how you're throwing the ball, what your hand position looks like, spin rates, what way the ball's spinning, just stuff like that that can help a pitch, or something where you're looking at it and it doesn't look right, doesn't feel right. So you can go back and look at that stuff to see what you're doing different than you had maybe a week ago, because you save all that data and you can go back and look at that stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. I mean, we were just talking about that documentary before. Like, they didn't have this same level of precise data on things. When it comes to that data, when it comes to statistics, I mean, Lord knows in my sphere, everybody's debating analytics every single time. It just seems to be like the buzzword that people throw out. But do you have a particular favorite advanced statistic that you like going to, whether it just be, even if it's for other players, that you just like looking for other players, and then one for yourself as well?
I mean, I think the movement plot is really fun to watch. And it kind of plays true to most pitches. Like if you're making the ball move, I don't know, 20 inches horizontally, like across the plate, like that's good no matter where you're throwing that from. So
Yeah.
just being able to look at that and like you can kind of compare what my stuff looks like and what it moves compared to, I don't know, you can look at Garrett Cole or you can look at Justin Verlander, guys in the show that are, and compare where your stuff is to theirs. So it's kind of cool to be able to do. So I like doing that.
Me too. I know that that Baseball Savant, for anybody listening to this show, great site for giving you some of those comparisons, especially when it comes to vertical and inches, and it gives you all that stuff to just see and whatnot. This is what's made some relievers from Josh Hader, former Padre, just to give some examples. So vicious is that thing goes flying across the screen and you just don't know what even happened to it. Devin Williams, another great example, the Airbender, as some call him. So everybody go check that out. Really recommend it. But now, Ryan, I want to ask you just a couple fun questions before I let you go and let you get back to, I guess, focusing on just being a baseball player. I mean, that must be pretty sick, I guess. Let me ask you just some fun questions. First of all, we're coming up in the holiday season. Christmas coming up. Do you have any sort of like favorite Christmas tradition every year?
Favorite Christmas tradition? We actually have a few. My wife's side of the family, they have Christmas Eve. Everyone gets new pajama pants matching for the couples, so that they kind of do that every year. And then my family side, there's actually a special ornament that my aunt, she hides in the tree. It's a green pickle ornament, so it's kind of hard to find in the tree. And if you find it
Okay.
on Christmas Eve, you get a special gift. It's usually like some chocolate or something or a gift card, but it's kind of fun to go over and try to find that. So
Just straight up like a pickle? Is this like a Rick and Morty thing, or it's just a
no,
regular
I
pickle?
don't really know where it came from, but it's kind of been around ever since I can remember. So,
I love that. Are you a fan of pickles?
I mean, I'll eat them. I'm not the hugest fan, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I can't decide. That's my thing with pickle. I don't know. Sometimes I like them, sometimes I love them.
Right.
When it comes, speaking of, I guess, food, do you have like a favorite snack that you have, whether it be just in general, or maybe do you have something? Because I've heard some fun stories about some guys, some players even in the majors that like have weird eating routines in the
Yeah.
dugout, whatnot. Do you have anything like that?
On the field, I'm just kind of a seed and gum guy.
Gotcha.
And then, off season, typical, I don't know, granola bar or something.
Hmm.
I'm not really too picky when it comes to snacks. So,
Really cringe question potentially, but do you have a favorite burger?
burger. Any of them with a fried egg on it, I tend to
Oh,
I
okay.
tend to gravitate towards those. So,
Awesome. Hey, I'm actually on the East Coast, so
mhm,
big fan of fried eggs at all time,
right.
especially on my bagels. So
Yeah.
I could definitely relate to that.
Mhm.
Um, when it comes to, back to the kind of holiday thing, what is kind of, I guess, aside from holidays, what is kind of your favorite thing to do in your downtime?
Golf, I think. Getting
Mhm.
out with some of my friends from high school or guys I've played with throughout the years, going out and play golf is really fun. So,
I am horrendous at golf. That might surprise some people out there. Not exactly my forte. I'm more of a
hmm
mini golf now. You're
hmm
speaking my language, but
yeah.
otherwise, not my best thing. Um, what is, I guess, speaking of games, good transition. Um, what other video games aside from NCAA football, because I know you mentioned that before, are
Yeah.
you a big fan of?
I've been playing Call of Duty for as long as I can
Hmm.
remember. Call of Duty, Fortnite when it was big, we really got into that.
Hmm.
Rocket League, I play that.
Yeah,
I don't know if you heard Rocket League. I play
love
that a
Rocket League.
lot.
Yeah.
Um, Played some Apex. A
Hmm.
bunch of my friends like to play it, so whenever they're on, I'll play that with them. But other than that, that's about it.
I mean, those are some classics. Those are really
hmm
fun, especially with like as you mentioned earlier, like just getting along with teammates and whatnot. I actually played Apex once and I won, and I never played again because I thought got to go out on top. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Um, do you have any current, other than video games and whatnot? Do you have any current movies or TV that you've been into?
Um, I haven't found a new show yet, but one of my all-time favorites is Peaky Blinders and Breaking Bad. Those are probably my two favorite TV shows that I've watched the
Both
last few
very,
years.
very relevant.
hmm
I enjoy everything Killian Murphy. He's
Yeah.
got a new movie coming out too. And then
hmm
Breaking Bad, I don't know if you see online like Aaron Paul and
hmm
Bryan Cranston are just
Yep.
always together. I'm just
Yeah.
really enjoying that. Really, really
Yeah.
fun stuff. Those guys are funny. Do you when in your experience playing, who's like kind of the funniest player that you think you've come across like in the clubhouse and whatnot?
Funniest player.
Mm,
Ooh. One that comes straight to mind is actually a guy we picked up this year, Robbie Tanarowitz. He's
okay.
just a character in the clubhouse, always having a good time, on and off the field. Like in the dugout, he keeps it loose. He's really fun to be around and talk to. So,
Shouts to you, Robbie, getting that shout out
yeah.
for Ryan here. When it comes to whether it be just someone you look up to as a player or someone that you maybe try to model your game after, I feel like those are two separate things. But do you have
hmm
anybody like that?
Um, I would say just kind of on, the way he approaches it. I like how Max Scherzer kind of approaches like his his demeanor when he's in the game. He's
Yeah.
laser focused.
Hmm.
All business. I kind of like trying to model just like my approach off of that. And then even when it comes down to like the nitty gritty stuff, like he'll throw his bullpens in the exact uniform he's going to throw in like
Hmm.
3 days after that. So just kind of stuff like that. I like the way he approaches things. So
Yeah, there's some fun compilations of videos explaining that. Are you
hmm
one of those that like when you're pitching, you don't like any contact, no one, making contact with you or talking to you?
I don't think I'm as extreme as
As
him,
extreme, right?
but
Yeah.
I definitely like to be over by myself, collect my thoughts. Only person I'll really talk to is probably the catcher on like the next few guys that we're gonna or how we're gonna attack them. So
Got you, man. Got you.
mhm.
And lastly, to close things out, pretty classic question, but just what's the best advice, life advice you think you've ever gotten?
Man, that's a good question. Best advice I've ever gotten. I guess just find the reason why you're doing something,
Hmm.
and that answer will kind of like show you if you should keep doing it or not. So
I love that. I love that. That's actually, no, seriously, I'm not even just saying that. Like, I think that that's great advice for everybody because you got to find a reason, man. You got to understand why you're doing what you're doing. Don't just do because something or someone tells you what to do. Ryan, this has been a lot of fun, man. I'm wishing you the best of luck in AA, possibly AAA, possibly whatever comes next. You know what I'm saying? Wishing you the best of luck, and hopefully win a couple more Call of Duty games. Get that KD ratio up. You know what I'm saying? I know that it's been popping off a little bit. I think, what are they on, Black Ops 6? Is that what we're at right now?
That's the newest one that came out. Yeah,
I've fallen out recently, so I haven't been paying attention. But everybody, go check out Ryan. Do you have any other things that you like to plug? If there's any social things that you want to talk about?
No, I mean, I think I'm good.
All right, cool. Everybody, go check out Ryan. Follow him at San Antonio Missions, and follow the rest of the Padres and their minor leagues and whatnot. Until next time, everybody, stay tuned to Lock on Padres. Next week, and recapping all sorts of news from a very crazy hot stove currently going on. But yeah, everybody, stay faithful. Stay grinding, stay whatever, stay golden. We'll see you next time.